Alright, we're recording an intro. I'm recording at 60 frames a second. Let's see if week 2 isn't a little bit better than week 1. Welcome to the devlog. My name is Crumlin, and this week I made a video game. I know, series over, call it quits. So, I was fairly productive this week just gone. I finished going through the Godot user manual. At the very end, there is a tutorial series you can follow where you can either make yourself a 2D game or a 3D game. Godot provides all of the assets for you, so your only job is to follow the instructions and code yourself. The tutorial itself I thought was really good. It was quite comprehensive. It was easy enough for me to follow along. I did have that prior programming experience, which I'm sure helped. But it was good. It was quite fun. Something I found fantastic was... Oh, I gotta blow my nose. Oh, it's coming. Something I thought was really good was the node system. I'm sure probably exists in Unity or Unreal, but that I was never really taught about. Maybe it doesn't exist. I've got no idea. But in Godot, anyway, if you've got like an enemy and it has a hitbox, you can kind of link the hitbox's like registration of being collided with directly to a script. So I could go onto a script with the player and say, oh, if you receive a signal from an enemy hitbox saying you hit it, you're dead. Obviously, in reality, you would do it like the other way around. It would just be if the player is hit at all, like dead. But you get the point, hopefully. It was really clever. I really liked it. And I did end up going with learning the Godot in-engine script. I do know C# from my time with Unity. You know, I wouldn't say I'm an expert on it, but I know it fairly well. And the option to use C# in Godot was there. But I figured, you know, it can't hurt to learn an additional language, especially as it seems that Godot script is a little more user-friendly within the Godot system itself. I could be wrong. I can nearly fucking topple that drink. Could be wrong, only time will tell. But it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of good time with it. And I did finish the tutorial series, which means I have a functioning working game. Again, none of it is my own stuff. It is completely through the Godot tutorial. But enough yapping about it, let's show you the actual game that got made. Godot, I think, called it like Creeper Dodge. I've just shorthanded it to Creep Dodge. So let's check it out. So this is what I ended up with. This is a small little title called Creep Dodge. It is really basic and straightforward. You move with your arrow keys or your WASD, and you just have to dodge these creatures that are just flying at you from all corners of the screen. The number at the top is kind of the countdown. What's the countdown? What am I talking about? It's the score, and the longer you last, the higher your score. The current record amongst the people I had just play through this very briefly was, I think, 67, maybe a little higher than that. But yeah, and just like that, did. So yeah, the game relies on the hitbox of the player. Once it's been interacted with by an enemy, it kind of just stops the timer, stops the score, stops the music, stops everything, and it's like, oh, you lose. And then you use this button down the bottom to start the game again. Resets the timer, begins the music playing once more, and if I just run straight into it, everything stops spawning. If I hit start while there's an enemy on screen, it clears the board for me, ready to go. Because the enemies are given a set of speeds, I should say a random value between two set speed levels. As for how the enemies are spawning in, very cleverly I thought there is a path drawn outside of the section of the screen you can see. It's like a rectangle path, and pretty much you have something following that path, and it randomly chooses points along that followed path to spawn a creature, sets them sort of towards the screen, and then gives them a variable angle as well as that variable speed. So every creep that comes at you is kind of, you know, each one is different. I'm sure there are repeats between them. But yeah, it's a cute little game. It came with its own sprite map, and I just like talking and playing video games at the same time, man. But yeah, it was a great little experience. The fact that it came with all of the assets made it very fun, and, you know, kind of the actual putting together of the assets in engine was really sort of a lot more intuitive than I thought It was great. It was really good. If you have any interest at all in trying out game programming and game creation, I think this is a fantastic tutorial. I would just recommend you read through the manuals first to get kind of a grip on how things work. And if you've never touched programming before, definitely check out some videos on that. Specifically Godot script if you're going to script in Godot. I only ran into one small hiccup on the way, which I have no idea how to sort of explain. There was one part where I was coding the player movement, and you had to take input from the keyboard and have it, change a value which would move the player. But for some reason, when I tried to move left or right or up, no issues. But when I tried to go down, it would break entirely. But the code was correct, like perfect, nothing wrong with it. What I did was, I looking at the code, the code to move down was the very last section of code for the function to do movement. So I just thought, oh, whatever, I'll move it up one and I'll have moving up be the final line of code. And everything started working fine. And I have no idea why that is. It's the same code, it was just moved up. And it's just all an if function, so it shouldn't matter where in the line it is because there's no else ifs. Which is another thing I didn't know about is in Godot, there's another operation for functions which isn't just like if or else, but called like elif or elif. I presume it's elif, which is like else if, which again, it might have been something in C# that I just wasn't taught during my time at university, but I read that and I was like, oh, that's so clever. It makes so much more sense because it's like a shorthand. Another bit of shorthand in the Godot script that I really liked was if your player has something on it called like a rigid body, which is something that basically gives it gravity and allows it to interact with other items that have like collision boxes. To access those sort of components, you needed to like call it via programming. In Godot script, you can just type like the $, and any child component of an item can be called. And that's amazing. That's so good. You can hit the $, type the item, like in this case, $ rigid body, and it will pull the rigid body from that item. And then you can hit the full stop and it'll call upon anything from that rigid body you can alter in script. Or at least I presume to be the case. I'm going to have to find out in future weeks of programming. But needless to say, it was a lot of fun, it was very informative, and I think I've got a pretty good grip on how the system works now. Something else that was interesting is that I chose to go with the 2D tutorial as opposed to the 3D tutorial. I actually spent all of my time in university studying 3D art. I am kind of specialized, I guess you would say, in 3D art, but Godot is, from what I've read and what I've seen, really optimized for 2D development, and I've never really made a 2D game before, so I thought, what a better way to learn and expand my abilities than doing something I haven't before. So the game we'll be making for the channel will be 2D. And speaking of the game being made for the channel, I think it's time to spin our first wheel. So for this first, I guess it's week 2 now, but for the first wheel, and I will be posting about this in shorts as well, just to make sure we get some extra options for us. I think the first thing we need to define in terms of this gameplay and game style is the genre. And I don't mean like comedy, romance, I mean the style of gameplay. Is it a shooter? Is it a farmer? Is it a simulator? If you would like to see a genre come into fruition that is in a 2D setting, throw it in the comments below. Do not request a fighting game. Fighting game, that I do not like fighting games. I've tried to play them for years and I just cannot get into them. So it would be a terrible time. If I see fighter down in the comments below, I'll do nothing, quite frankly. But if it gets selected on the wheel, but yeah, that's everything I have to report on. So remember, throw down a genre you'd like to see made down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week after I've tampered a little bit more with Godot and, maybe thrown together some extra stuff.